Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk a little bit about the Browns here in a few minutes. Guardians getting ready to take on the Tigers in Detroit, Game 4 of the ALDS, and they'll be facing elimination. Yesterday, Game 3 in Detroit, first inning, bottom of the first, and it was scoreless. Riley Green kind of hits one the infield out into center field. That'll score Parker Meadows for a 1-0 lead. And then in the third, Matt Verling hits one out into left field. Stephen Kwan gets it, but the throw not in time. Jake Rogers scores on the sac fly to make it 2-0. Bottom of the sixth, Tigers at it again. Spencer Torkelson drills one out in the left, solid base hit. Colt Keith will score from second on the play. 3-0 lead, and that was the final. Guardians could not get a hit, had some opportunities with runners in scoring position, but they fall to the Tigers in Game 3 by a score of 3-0. So now the Guardians, 3-0 losers yesterday. They're facing elimination today, a couple of hours away. Last time Cleveland's baseball team won a playoff game while facing elimination, it was Game 6 of the 1997 World Series. I was there. I was covering that. 9,847 days ago. Zach Mizell doing the math for us there. But the Guardians facing elimination must win to force a Game 5, a decisive Game 5 that would be back here in Cleveland. The Guardians have failed to score now in 20 straight innings during this series with the Tigers. It's a postseason franchise record. If you're wondering when the last time such a drought was, back in the 1920 World Series. And if you're looking for a positive sign, the Guardians won that 1920 World Series over 100 years ago. It was a best of 9, not best of 7 as it is now, but 20-inning postseason drought. And in fact, the last 26 innings, they've only scored 2 runs. Remember, they put 5 on the board in the first inning of the first game. If you're looking for a reason that the Guardians are struggling, 1-11. That's what they are, 1 of 11 the last 2 games with runners in scoring position. They tried to work some matchups with pinch hitters that didn't really work out for them. You know, you got to try it. Stephen Vogt, about the opportunities that they had in Game 3.
Nothing that happened today caught us off guard. We were prepared for all of it. We took our shots when we had the opportunity to put some runs up. And like I said, placed bets and then just didn't come through. Yeah, I mean, when you're playing from behind, the other team has the opportunity to get you handcuffed. But, you know, outside of maybe a couple at bats, I felt like we had the advantage in almost every situation today. We had traffic going. I thought we did a great job setting the table. We just weren't able to come through with a big hit. You can go down that road all you want. At the end of the day, all you can control is hitting the ball hard, and David did that. And, you know, credit Bielik for making a great play, being in the right spot. And, yeah, again, I felt like we had pretty good at-bats at times, and then at other times we didn't. But overall, you know, we gave ourselves an opportunity to score a lot of runs today, just weren't able to come with the big hit in scoring position.
So the Guardians will turn to Tanner Bibee to get the start today in Game 4. Bibee got the start in Game 1, the game that the Guardians won. Didn't give up any runs. Remember, it was 7-0 win. He didn't pitch the 5 innings that would be required to get a win. Did pitch 4 1/3 and was pretty good. Now he is tasked with trying to keep the season alive for the Guardians.
A lot less nerves for sure, but I think at this point, just trying to go out there and win a ball game at this point. I don't really care how I do it. Don't really care how we do it. Just to go out there and win. That's kind of the whole point of this year. I feel like just after a rocky first inning, I mean, I feel like earlier on in this year, kind of would have let that get to me. But I feel like in the last outing, I was able to get through the rocky first inning and kind of settle down and settle in. I feel like being able to do that in a postseason is extremely important because there's a lot of good hitters on every single team you're going to face, and they're going to wear you down. So being able to settle down after that, I feel like is pretty important.
Yeah, without question. Now, Bibee and the Tigers seen each other quite a bit this season. In the regular season, which was back, remember, the Guardians and the Tigers didn't play after July, end of July in the regular season. But Bibee did face them quite a bit in the regular season earlier. Either way, he's looking forward to the challenge of today.
I think in the major leagues, I mean, through my 2 years, I think it's super important to have, obviously, they know your mix. Everyone knows your mix. It's just figuring out how to use it, when to use it, what person. I mean, it varies from game to game. I mean, tomorrow's going to be the 6th time I face these guys this year. So, I mean, I'm not the same pitcher I was in start 1. I'm not the same pitcher I was in start 3 against these guys. So I feel like it's just I mean, Cobb was telling me through his 27 years he's been in the big leagues that he's not the same pitcher he was when he started to where he is now. In the postseason, no matter where you go, especially with these teams left, it's going to be a really awesome atmosphere wherever you go. And I mean, the fans here want to see their team win, and our job is to win in a hostile environment. So I mean, I think I'm just going to do whatever I can to win.
And again, Bobby will get the ball to start game 4. Tigers will go with a bullpen game. They do have Tarek Skubal looming if there is a 5th and decisive game 5. Let's take a look at how the Tigers have hit the Guardians. These are some of the top part of their order. And Parker Meadows, 3 for 11, does have a run scored. Kerry Carpenter has probably the biggest hit of this series to date. He has that 3-run homer off Clase. 7 at-bats, only really is used against righties. So he's 2 for 7, 3 runs batted in and a home run. Verling, a couple of hits, 10 at-bats, an RBI. Green, who we showed you his RBI, has a couple of hits. Perez, 1 for 9. Colt Keith, 1 for 9 as well. And really, neither team's hitting the ball that well. The Tigers have scored 6 runs, back-to-back 3-0 wins. Guardians have outscored them. They won 7-0 in game 1. Take a look at some of the guys that are hitting the ball really well. And the Guardians, guy that jumps off to the page is Stephen Kwan. 5 of 11, a couple of runs scored. David Fry, a couple of RBIs, 2 of 10. Jose Ramirez, 1 of 9, just 1 run batted in and a run scored. Thomas had the big home run in game 1. He's 2 of 11 and 3 RBIs in that homer. Josh Naylor, just 1 of 11. Andres Jimenez, 1 for 10. Guardians need somebody to come up with a base hit with runners in scoring position. It would also help. Again, Kwan's doing his job. He's been on base. You need whomever you're hitting in that 2-hole to be on so that Jose Ramirez gets some decent pitches. And Ramirez has struggled in the postseason throughout his career. So 35 games. You see the average is 233. OPS is 230 points lower than his lifetime OPS. Has 2 postseason home runs. That would be a 9 home run pace over 162 games, and just 13 RBIs, 60 RBI pace. 2 things. I think Jose realizes when he goes, this offense, it's different. So he's pressing a little bit, and pitchers are pitching him. If every meeting that a starting pitcher or an opener has, and you can be sure the Tigers do not let Jose Ramirez beat you. So if you're Jose Ramirez, you gotta stay disciplined. You gotta find a pitch that you can do something with, or get on base for the guy behind you. And I think Jose's chasing some borderline pitches and really hasn't got his pitch to hit just yet. Let's hope for the Guardians' sake that's coming. Again, Guardians, Tigers, game 4, an elimination game. If the Guardians can win it, they'll force a 5th and decisive game back here in Cleveland. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we are talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report will join us. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
Sports for CLE continues. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yes, this is a message for the entire Browns organization. I know we have players banged up, but now it's time for these boys to go ahead and put up or shut up, because without this team has been reset. And Kevin Stefanski is the right man for the job, two-time coach of the year. Got to the playoffs twice, only won one playoff game. But now it's the Deshaun Watson case, and we are seeing nothing. So what I'm saying is, to the entire team, it's time for everybody to play football. Stop making excuses. Stop coming up with ways to go ahead and crush these guys. It's time to go ahead and just play ball. That's it. Go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast. Casey, last week was probably the most disappointing performance, maybe since Dallas. Dallas and Washington. I'm splitting hairs. They just looked awful.
Yeah, there's no other way to look at it. It was just ineptitude across the board. And for me, it's not about excuses. It's about execution. With the callers right, you have everything in-house that it takes to succeed and to win right here, right now. Now, that might be a scratch and claw effort. You're not going to blow any teams out of the water. But if you play a specific brand of football and keep things close and play just to your strengths and not get outside of your lanes, you can pull off some of these wins. The part that hurts the most is you just got through the easiest part of your schedule. When we sat here the offseason, we looked at the schedule in front of us. For me, it was about the defense kind of carrying the bucket of water to start the season. But the offense has to start clicking, and this was my deadline date, week 6. By week 6, you got the Eagles, you got the Bengals, you got the Ravens, you got the Chargers. It gets tougher, So I don't know what the approach is going to be this week, but in my opinion, you're going into Philadelphia. You had to get 2 of 3 on the road. You're 0-2 on the road in this road trip. You got to scratch and claw and come away with the win this week.
Ken Dorsey was asked, how do you go about fixing this offense? Was asked that today.
Again, I think the big focus when things don't work out the way you want to is going back and just identifying, all right, where can we be better? Where can we coach better? Where can we execute better? And just that understanding, like we talked about last week, of the ownership of it takes all 11 on the field to execute an offensive football. So I think those are the biggest things you focus on. You go back and you make sure that as coaches we're doing the things that we feel like is best to attack an opponent, keep a identity that we want to keep, and then making sure that we are going out and focusing on, hey, we got to win today to help us on Sunday, and I think those are the big things. Is you got to take ownership not only of Sunday, but that starts throughout the week.
When I watch the Browns offense, the line has lost. They used to be physical. I don't think I can say that anymore. I don't think they're a physical offensive line anymore. I think that's the base of the problem.
And I would say that would be what you would identify as the mark of the Stefanski and Barry era, is their ability to win on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and the offense has not been able to do that. And I just think they aged out faster than this regime thought they were going to. I just don't think that you can rely on that as a strength. Even going into the season, we knew that there was issues at the tackles because of injury, but you thought you could rely on the interior to kind of get you through some of these things. That has not been the case. And for me, it's a lot, they're not as physical, but it's also the mental stuff. There's an inability to recognize stunts and blitzes, and then at that point, when you have a quarterback who's holding on the ball too long, not finding answers, plays are dead on arrival. So I think that's where you start. But when he says you have to keep an identity, first you have to form that identity, So I just think that we're talking about the definition of insanity. If you don't change something drastically, and it could be a personnel, it could be a schematic, it could just be the formations you're using, but you have to change some things up, because obviously what they're doing week in and week out so far this season has not worked.
Yeah, and here's another number that'll show you how poor it's been. Offenses without 300-plus total yards in a single game during weeks 1 through 5 over the past 5 seasons. This year's Browns, as you see, end of list. So over the last 5 years, to start a season, to where we are in the season, there hasn't been an offense this inept.
Well, that's the word, right? Like, if you were to say what is the identity of this team, I would say ineptitude. And we're talking about, just look at it as a whole pie chart. You've had 59 possessions on the season. 19 of those, that is 1/3, 3 and out. That will kill a defense as quick as anything. You've had another, how many possessions is it now? You've had 6 possessions end on downs, which to me is a turnover. Doesn't register as one, but that's another thing. It's going to kill your defense. You've had another 19% of your plays end in a punt that wasn't 3 and out. Those are acceptable to me because you can play the field position game. Because if I'm looking all over the field for pluses, especially I'm looking at Borquez. Borquez has been a weapon for you. If you can play the field position game, fine. But you've also got 6 turnovers. You've only scored 7 touchdowns and 7 field goals through 5 games. This is ineptitude that we've never seen, and we've sat through some stuff in the last 25 years, and we have yet to see an offense this inept. And then just aside from that, this is the most expensive offense in the NFL. Like, this is failure at a level we haven't seen in Cleveland.
All right, so hold that thought about the offense being inept, because I'll put that even into a scarier context here in a minute. This is the rate of drives to reach the red zone or score a touchdown before reaching the red zone. Commanders, who the Browns kind of helped move that up a little bit, 58.7%. 49ers and Lions, second and third. Eagles are tied for fourth with the Saints at 47.5. Browns are the worst. The Browns are 15.3 behind the Dolphins, who, keep in mind, they haven't had Tua for a couple of weeks. So, and there are a number of teams that are playing backup quarterbacks that are ahead of the Browns. Heck, the Panthers, who benched Bryce Young, are ahead of the Browns. And it starts on first down, because you're getting penalties and you're not gaining enough yardage and you're not running the football.
Yeah, well, you said it, the last thing you just said. You're throwing the ball more than anyone on first down, and your passing game is inept. What does that leave you? That leaves you at best at 2nd and 10. When you're not completing at a high rate, you can't go out there and spread out the field and play in shotgun. That's all well and good when you're converting and sustaining drives. But when you're not, converting on first down and you're playing from behind the sticks, this isn't an offense that's going to be built to do that. To me, it's, and it comes down to basic stuff, and I know that this all offseason, it was about changing the offense, and we kept talking about how different it's going to look. Well, it looks completely different. And by different, I mean atrocious, and if you got to go back to going heavy personnel and shrinking everything down and just keeping it north and south, running gap scheme, wide zone, whatever you got to do, you got to get this thing to its. You're looking at 3rd and 8s. You're averaging 8 yards on 3rd down.
Yeah,
that's a death sentence for this offense. So that's where it comes down to. And if you can't sustain drives, you can't get to the red zone, you're going to remain at the bottom of that list.
Yeah, without question. And when I think of this, how long do you stick with it? How long do you have to eat dog crap before you decide you don't like the taste of it? That's kind of where I'm at with the offense.
You have to ask Jimmy Haslam that question.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to.
I think that's a legitimate question based on what we're seeing at this point in time. All right, I told you to keep in mind how much the Browns' offense has struggled. If you rank the defenses the Browns' offense has faced this season by EPA per play, Cleveland has faced defenses that are ranked 27th, 31st, 18th, 21st, and 28th. Again, historically bad start against some of the worst defenses in the NFL. Yeah. It's not like they're getting beat by good defenses. They can't do it against the bottom dweller defenses.
No. And outside of Cincinnati, was a surprise struggle on defense, I'll say that. Yeah, I don't see a weak defense coming up. Philadelphia, they're strong in areas that you're weak. Baltimore is going to bring it. The Chargers are going to bring it. Like the sledding gets tremendously tougher. And you weren't able to. But it was a work in progress. I fully expected that. I expected it to be slow on offense to come together before it could go. But I did never in my wildest dreams that I think it would be this putrid. If you couldn't do it against those defenses. And the only thing that I can put in my head is they are just assuming that if we throw enough reps at it, eventually it clicks. But at one point, are we talking about the definition of insanity? No, and this is only 5 games. We have 12 games left to go. I just don't know how long they can look at this product, or how long they can go into their locker room to the other players and say, "This is what we're going to do again this week," before you really just fracture everything.
Yeah, I am. Again, I know they play a lot of AFC teams coming up, but I don't have any confidence they can string together 3 really good series, much less 3 good games against quality NFL teams. There is some positive news out of practice. David Njoku, Myles Garrett, Deontay Foreman returned to practice. Cooper practicing after a vet day. Didn't see Ward, Delpit, Hickman, Posick, and James Hudson for the 2nd straight day. And you need as many of the. It's all hands on deck at this point in time, because the ship is it's pointing like that.
Yeah, Denzel and Grant Delpit, particularly when I look at that list, I just look at the task you have at hand this week, and I know what you're going to have to do on defense to stay in this game with Philadelphia. Saquon Barkley's a problem. Grant Delpit would be a great aid to have come down in the box, help and run fits, and obviously with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown returning, you'd love to see Denzel Ward out there, because that changes the dynamic of your secondary. So that provides extra issues. Denzel's is a hamstring. We'll see how they play that. Grant's still in concussion protocol, so we really won't hear anything until he's back. But yeah, those are guys that will be sorely missed this week if they can't go.
Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast, and I going to step aside to take a quick time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of truth and reason. Sports for CLE. Will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. All I'm hearing and seeing is media and fans bashing us once again. We're getting the same old Browns mantra thrown right in our faces. Once more, we are the laughing stock of the league. Worst trade in NFL history. Can't be a consistent winner. This has truly devastated me in my sports life. It really has. I see fans of other teams being happy and grateful that their team wins year in and year out. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame the Browns for going after a young elite level talent at the time. But like everyone is saying, of course the Browns screwed it up because it's the same old Browns. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, let me give a little bit of perspective, though, to this. I don't blame them for trying to go get Deshaun Watson. I thought they swung big. It's been a miss, without question. It's going to be a miss. There's no way to justify it. But look at the other quarterbacks that they were trying to get. Aaron Rodgers, that was a disaster. Russell Wilson, that was a disaster. I guess, you did have Matthew Stafford, but Browns were never in on that. He was going to go. I guess the cautionary tale is, if a team is willing to move on from what is believed to be an elite quarterback, there's probably a reason for it.
Yeah, either they got someone in the pipeline they feel good about, like in the Packers situation with Jordan Love, or they see a flaw with a player that they don't feel justified in putting the money in, with Russell. And for the record, I was actually pushing for Russell at that point in time, but I completely understood why you go get Deshaun Watson. And at some point, like I can hear Rico, and I feel Rico's pain about how it feels right now. But the onus has to go on the player at some point. This wasn't a player that was past his physical prime. This was a guy, if you look at his time in Houston, he was an elevator. Like the situation was not perfect in Houston. People look at, the offensive line here and say, they're not good, they're not doing this. Well, they weren't in Houston either, but he was an elevator, and he was able to produce even in those settings. But none of those things are true now. And some of it is, this is a weird thing to say because we can sit and remember that press conference, and I believe it was 93, where Belichick cited, it was when he was talking about Bernie, that, there's a regression but we see like diminished physical gifts. Yeah. Like, we're kind of seeing that now.
Right.
Because with the way Deshaun's playing, you'll see anytime that there's pressure, his eyes drop. What he did in Houston is he found answers. He's not finding answers. His eyes drop, and he's not able to escape the pocket like he could when he was in Houston. So those magical plays that he were making are just not here now, and that's what made him a separator. So I get why you traded for that. You saw the gifts. They just haven't translated. They have not come to fruition. And like I said, I think they're just hoping that if you throw enough reps at it, that clicks and it comes back. I just don't see it. I'm dubious that we ever see that player ever again.
Yeah, and I was somebody that said, okay, we'll see. I'm with you. I don't see it. Don't see it at all. This is kind of interesting. Bleacher Report: hot seat check for struggling head coaches. Kevin Stefanski. Why the seat is hot? Browns are running out of people to blame for poor product that's on the field every week. Cleveland had its fair share of offensive struggles last season, but that was blamed on Deshaun Watson's injury and Alex Van Pelt. The offseason, they got rid of Van Pelt and signed Ken Dorsey. Whatever their plan was, it's not working. Can't argue with that. How he can get off it. Either Stefanski makes a bold decision to bench Watson and proves that he can win with a cheaper veteran quarterback like Jameis Winston. The other option is Stefanski finally figures out how to help Watson regain his form he once showed in Houston. Hot seat ranking 5 of 10. I think you and I have both been in agreement. I don't think the Watson thing costs Stefanski his job. I don't think it costs Barry his job, and I don't think it should. I do think that when you give both of them an extension, the expectation is, okay, you've got us from whatever we were at to mediocre. Now it's your job to get us from mediocre to consistent playoff contender. And right now you're 0 for 1 because this is not a playoff team. I can say with reasonable certainty this ain't a playoff team.
It's really not the way they're currently constructed and the way they're going about it. The one thing that I see in that is they're assuming that Kevin Stefanski has the authority to bench Deshaun Watson. I find that very hard to believe. And there's definitely split camps on this. I've heard it from both sides, even from the OBR, of people that believe that this is a Kevin Stefanski decision, to people that believe it's a Jimmy Haslam decision. I just find it hard to believe that a coach that didn't have the authority to decide if a quarterback was healthy enough to even play in the first place or not, all of a sudden has the authority to just bench the quarterback. And I think that if you could give Kevin Stefanski some truth serum, I think he knows there's a better option currently on the team. I just don't think that they're going that way. Now, in the offseason, was there a backstage handshake agreement? Like, hey, man, we're going to give this the biggest runway possible. This season is all about finding out if 4 can do this. And if not, they pivot. But I feel so bad for the other 52 players on the roster if that's the case. Because it's hard for me. They're seeing the same things that you're seeing. They're watching the same film that we're watching. And, there are issues all around, because this isn't an either or proposition. This isn't it's one player or it's this. There's a ton of bad around.
Right.
But there's one player that I can change right now that allows me to evaluate the other things that are going on. And their failure to do that leads me to believe that this is they're willing to let this play out longer than they should.
Yeah. Well, you have to do, and again, to your point, you either have to change the play caller, you either have to change the quarterback. It's not. Otherwise, you're putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, and there's no anything. If you're not changing the quarterback or the play caller or the offensive scheme, you're not going deep enough. This is not tweaks. This is drop the engine and rehaul it quickly.
Yeah, they say if you're keeping the same quarterback, then you got to go back to heavy personnel, run 12, and basically stay inside the wheelhouse and keep it simple and just try to get first down. Start small. This offense, we were hoping for explosives. I would settle for first downs at this point, just keeping and playing field position. You can't even do that at this stage. Or you go and you change quarterbacks, and then maybe you can become explosive. Maybe you can get rid of the football and you can start to evaluate what works and what doesn't work, because right now nothing is working.
All right, Browns, this is from Mac. We use this stuff quite frequently. Browns weren't 1-4. They'd be talking about how Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a top 5 linebacker right now. Among all off-ball linebackers in the NFL, tied for first in TFLs with 6. Remember, he was really good at that last year as well and was in the conversation with some of the DNs. Fourth in pressures at 9, one of 5 linebackers to record a sack, forced fumble, and interception. And you know what? Everybody on the defense has kind of shared in some of the missed tackle issues as well. He's playing well, but they got to stop missing tackles and stop getting run all over.
Yeah. And there's certain things that they're susceptible to. You know, you think about just a jet sweep. If I'm a team playing us, we're going to run a jet sweep, probably 2 or 3 a game. There's just certain things they fall for every time, and you're able to use their aggression against them. But it's a shame because JOK is having a heck of a season. Grant Delpit was having a heck of a season. You can point to bright spots, especially on the defense, but as a whole, they have not been the unit that they were last year. Last year, they were historical in some contexts. You know, there were things they needed to clean up in the red zone and some of the turnover issues and stuff like that. But JOK has definitely been a bright spot, and you could tell a significant difference when he came out off the field in the last game. But if you look at his skill set and what he's able to do and the steps he's been able to take, like his trajectory just keeps going up. But that all gets lost in the sauce when you're losing. When you're losing like this, you can have those bright spots. People aren't going to notice him, but he is turning in a heck of a season so far.
So Jim Schwartz today, defensive coordinator, asked what he saw when he looked at his defense against the Commanders.
Obviously, it was the big plays. We had 7 plays where I think it accounted for about 280 yards of offense. And it sort of erased I think we had 58 plays where we gave up like 2.5 yards of play. That's 2.5 yards of play is like insane defense, but it gets offset by those 7 big plays. And, it's the NFL. You're not going to make every one of those 7 plays, but we got to make half of those. If we make half of those, it's a different situation right there. It was an aggressive game plan. I thought the players did a good job with the challenge and everything, but we contain a couple times to our left. We missed some tackles, and when it was all said and done, it negated some really good stuff on film. But that's the NFL.
And yeah, I get that. There were times where the defense was what you expected, and then it was like critical moments. Yeah. That's a 40-yard run. That's a 37-yard run.
It's containment. It's not recognizing assignment. I would even argue that they missed tackles last year, but they were swarming to the ball. So when one guy missed, the next 3 guys clean it up. But when it's just one-on-one and that guy misses, all of a sudden it's nothing but green grass. And when you're playing someone like Jaden Daniels, it just felt like they were off to their races. And there were just so many times that you would get them into 3rd and long, and they would just run their way out of it. And that's kind of been the only thread from last season to this season is this team is not good against the run, period. Like that has definitely been a deficit. And we knew there were some schematic differences they were trying to do this year and kick Dalvin in to be that one tech and kind of play off that. But then Dalvin gets hurt before the season, so he's not been able to put a full snap count together. And he's a guy that rotated regularly last year. They just don't have that beef in the interior and then the missed tackles on the outside. And you can see why teams, when they come to play us, man, they're going to run that football.
And you've got Saquon Barkley, you've got Derrick Henry, you got J.K. Dobbins. It's getting more difficult, not easier. Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. Well, we'll continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon of the Orange and Brown Report, also co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast and Barking Browns podcast. Michelle Smallman from ESPN's Unsportsmanlike on the Browns quarterback situation with Deshaun Watson.
So you said they sold their soul. Then why are we surprised that they're in hell? Isn't that what comes with the territory? Isn't that the risk that you take? When you sell your soul, don't be surprised when you end up in hell. And that's where the Cleveland Browns are. And by the way, I do blame them for not having a viable backup at the quarterback position. You had evidence that this was coming. Evan, when you picked them to be the challengers to the Chiefs, I was banging the table saying, what have you seen from Deshaun Watson during his Cleveland Browns tenure that leads you to believe it will be any different? They should know their personnel. They should know that he's not physically capable of being the same quarterback. They should know he's not the leader that they're paying him to be, and they should not care about his feelings. They should care about giving the other guys in that locker room a quarterback that they can rally around and help them win some football games, and they did not do it. This is their fault.
Casey, I don't know that they don't have a viable backup quarterback. The problem is they're not willing to go there.
That hurt my soul to hear. Yeah.
You can't argue with it. The problem is you can't argue with much of it.
No, I can't argue with the front part of it, but them to say they don't have a viable backup, to me, that hurts my soul. It's, I think they have a clear option sitting right there on the bench. And I think the camera operator who was working that game knew, because every time they talked about it, he panned over to Five sitting on the sidelines looking dejected, just watching things happen. Jameis Winston,
he can play,
is more than a viable backup.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Jameis Winston's a lot like Joe Flacco. He's going to give you he's going to throw the ball downfield. The other team's going to get it some, but his guys are going to get it some too.
Well, that's when I see all the pining for Joe Flacco. It's like telling your kids, like, no, we got Joe Flacco at home. We already got this guy who can do all of those things you want him to do, and you want to be explosive. And it'd be a feel good. Like, you would go from being this team right now who's being laughed at and kind of vilified because of the quarterback that you have, to if you go to Jameis and you get Nick Chubb back, all of a sudden the vibe surrounding this team and the feel good nature of them within a month would be the feel good story of the NFL. It's that simple. But it's when are they going to rip the Band-Aid off, or are they even going to rip that Band-Aid off? We don't know. The conversations happen behind closed doors. But I do know this: if you get that same level of quarterback play that you've got in the first 5 weeks, this next week in Philly, I don't know how you can march that back out in front of the home fans October 20th against the Bengals. I just don't know how you can do that. That would be a crazy environment. I don't know the last time that the Browns haven't sold out a home game, but I know you would not sell out that one.
The one thing is the cap hits, if you decide to move on for them, are, I believe it's $83 or $87 million for the next 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. That's why they're not sure that they're going to do that.
You might just have to tell him to stay home and pay him what he's in. But it's messy. There's no way around it. It's going to be very messy if it comes to that.
All right, ranking NFL teams with losing records by playoff chances. This is from CBSSports.com. Top one, 2-3, the San Francisco 49ers. The second one, the Jets at 2-3. The third one, the Dolphins at 2-3. The Bengals, 1-4, they're fourth. 13th, the Patriots, 1-4. 14th, Panthers, 1-4. Browns are the last, 15th. Watson has been dreadful, yet the Browns continue to leave him out there as their starting quarterback. Not much will change in Cleveland as long as that continues. Man, this is the Sunshine and Roses edition of Sports for CLE with your Browns coverage. I can't argue with any of it. If you have sit and watched this garbage, how can you argue with it?
Yeah, you can't. But I would say this: the reason it hurts even more is there's no one running away with your division.
Oh no.
You're a game and a half out of a wild card spot as is. That hurts. But it still feels so far away because you're not getting more than 2 drives a game out of your offense. You haven't cracked over 18 points. Like, there's just so many things that we haven't seen to believe that there's going to be something there that allows you to start stacking games. But if you do that, you have every one of your division games in front of you. So it's still there if you can figure that part out. But it just feels like it's, a million miles away right now. And you can't even think about those things. You got to think about winning one game.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, Jim Schwartz, on the approach to the Eagles game for the Browns.
It's an important game for us because of what our situation is right now, and it's our next game. it's a road game. A win will go a long way to, starting to patch up some of the ills that we've had. So that's the most important thing this week.
All right, so let's move to this thought. It looks like A.J. Brown's coming back, Smith's coming back. Well, the Browns, how do they do something to get a win in Philly against the Eagles?
Well, I can't even speculate about the offense, so I'm going to stick with the defense on this one. For me, it's Saquon Barkley. You're looking at a player who is at 435 rushing yards over 4 games, 6 yards per carry, 4 rushing touchdowns. Then you also have what he gives you in the passing game. Focus on stopping him. If you try to make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm, and if they do, fair play. But this defense is going to have to put together a gargantuan effort to give your offense even a shot to climb near that 18 to 20-point range and escape Philadelphia with a win. But this isn't an unbeatable Philadelphia team. Now, it's a very talented Philadelphia team, and they've stockpiled players, and a lot of their strengths are where your weaknesses are. So it's going to have to be an all-hands-on-deck approach. For me, it's linebackers going to have to tackle. DBs will have to come up and tackle. You cannot miss tackles against this team. But if I were to break it down and look at the guys they have coming back, A.J. Brown. If this was week, if I don't have Denzel, I'm traveling this week. Martin Emerson's going everywhere A.J. Brown goes. He's a big physical receiver who wins at the catch point. That is something Martin Emerson is equipped to stop. Devontae Smith's a little more twitched up. I put Greg Newsome on him. And I just focus on the running game. And if Jalen Hurts can beat you with his arm, then so be it.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report. He also co-hosts the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby tins. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. Great show as per usual. Hey, we need Jack Duffin in the house to talk about the implications of Deshaun's contract. What would be the repercussions if the Browns cut him immediately or at the end of the season? No one is trading for him at this point. Seems like he's lost a step, doesn't read defense as well, is seeing ghosts, and holds on to the ball way too long. This offensive scheme does not appear to fit him or the O-line or the running backs. The team seems defeated before it even walks out on the field. I'm just a long-time fan calling on the Browns to eat this mistake, and let's move on. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. So, again, there are different things they can do, but the bottom line is the cap hit, if they move on from him, and it would probably likely be like post-June 1st designation, Cap hit, $83-ish million against the cap in each of the next 2 seasons. That would be catastrophic cap issues from moving on from that contract. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, you know, we've constantly said, well, the contract hasn't kept them from doing anything. If they move on from Deshaun Watson and have to eat it, now the contract will keep them from doing lots of things.
Yeah, I think this is ultimately just the worst case scenario, kind of what I think everybody thought was going to happen with the trade was Deshaun Watson just not getting to the Houston form that I think we all anticipated he could get to. I think the Browns hoped he could get to. That we're having these conversations at this point is still just, you know, it's just obviously has not gone well for the Browns clearly, and you just wonder if it continues to go in this direction, if they have to do something with him, whether they decide, as Casey was talking about last segment, you decide it's better just to have him stay home and pay him, or if you have to cut him with the post-June 1st cut, because I think if I looked right on over the cap, you do that, then yeah, the cap hit drops. The dead cap drops to about $119 million, and if you do the Russell Wilson thing, you spread it out over a couple seasons. I'm not a capologist. I don't pretend to be one, but that feels like it would be a better situation if that was the road you were going to go down. But bottom line, it's just obviously, you know, such a difficult situation for the Browns and Deshaun Watson unless somehow they could turn it around.
All right. So I know you wrote an article just about, you know, Deshaun Watson, how far he has fallen in 2024. Take us through that article and kind of, you know, as you looked at it, what you came to.
Well, for me, this is my quarterback power ranking. So I decided, you know, after Sunday's game, I put Deshaun Watson dead last among all starting quarterbacks in the NFL as of, you know, last Sunday's games. That includes, you know, being behind guys like Will Levis of the Titans, Tyler Huntley of the Dolphins, who came in for an injured Skylar Thompson, just joined them a couple weeks ago, and the Dolphins really done nothing on offense. And with Deshaun Watson, yeah, what hurts the Browns is he's obviously towards the bottom in a lot of categories, 28th in traditional quarterback rating, 26th in yards per game, tied for last with Bryce Young in yards per pass attempt at 4.8. And then you get into the advanced numbers, the expected points added. This is from the analytics site, rbsdm.com. They do great stuff. If you see the charts on Twitter, the dot charts, usually those are the guys that one of the sites that come up with that. Deshaun Watson, based on those charts, and estimated points added per play. That's basically what your player is worth in an analytics viewpoint. Listed as negative 2.87. So basically, he's costing you a full point almost a full point every 3 plays, and you know that's just not going to get it done. And you match that up with what we saw when you look back at the film of the Washington game, missing open receivers. There was the play with Jerry Jeudy wide open in the corner of the end zone that Washington doesn't throw the football. There's a 3rd down and 10 where there's a multitude of guys wide open. Even if they don't get the first down, they get closer. It has not been a good year for him, pretty much to say the least. Other than, you know, the only real highlight you could look at is that 82-yard touchdown to Amari Cooper in Vegas that got called back for holding. I mean, who knows if he plays any better against Washington, you know, if coming off that play, if it stood. But yeah, Sunday in Washington, that was just a poor game by the whole offense, including the quarterback. And yeah, the offense, I think as a whole, is still to blame, but Watson could certainly do his part to make things better. And to this point, he just hasn't done it.
All right. So again, another one of the metrics by which Deshaun Watson's struggling. Lowest passer ratings when blitzed this season, minimum of 10 attempts. This is from the 33rd team. Anthony Richardson is the worst. He doesn't have a passer rating for the Colts. Bryce Young, benched. 40.4 is his passer rating. Will Levis, 45.1. Dalton, who replaced Bryce Young, 55.6. Jordan Love, 56.2. Watson, 6th worst, 60.1. And again, the issue is he is getting blitzed quite a bit because the Browns are having issues picking it up.
Yeah, I mean, teams can look at, what has worked against Deshaun Watson all season. It's just keep blitzing, because it seems like they just don't seem to have answers for it. Part of the problem, and Greg Olsen kept mentioning this on the broadcast on Sunday, was they keep not winning first down, not hitting that success rate mark of 4 or 5 yards on first down. And when you're in third and long, like the Browns seem like they've been for the vast majority of their third downs this season, it's an easy blitz call. And the Browns and Deshaun Watson just have not done a good enough job either executing on third downs or calling plays that are going to be blitzes on third downs. And even though, we're going to talk about the Eagles a little bit, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of sacking the quarterback this season. Even then, it would not stun me if the Eagles just throw waves of blitzes at the Browns, because it's clear that's what's working, is you blitz them and they have not been able to do much of anything against it. And teams are going to keep doing it until the Browns and Deshaun Watson figure out how to beat the blitz. From 20 quarters in the season, that just hasn't happened yet.
All right, before we go to break, I know you wrote a Fact or Fiction article. So tell me, Fact or Fiction, Browns offense is unfixable.
As of right now, I say fact. I mean, there's 20 quarters, of film out there that just tells you it's not working. They're not able to run the football well. The protection isn't good enough. There's receivers that are dropping open passes. You look at Jerry Jeudy in particular, had that open opportunity end zone that he drops the football. The offensive line just still is feeling the effects of last season when, their top 3 tackles were injured for the season. They're still feeling the effects of that with DeJuan Jones not being 100%. Jedrick Wills is just coming back on the field. Jack Conklin still hasn't played since week 1 of last season. And of course, with Deshaun Watson struggling the way he is, we've said this before, you can't look at really anything on this offense that you can say has been good for 5 games, because there really hasn't been. They're at the bottom of so many offensive categories. And the worst part of it, from a Browns perspective, they haven't exactly played the best defenses in the NFL. These are some of the worst defenses in the league, mediocre or worse in a lot of cases. And I know Kevin's fans talking about, they're not going to change the quarterback. They're not changing the play caller. They're not changing anything. And I feel like when things are not going this well, I feel like you have to change something. You have to change at least one thing, because what you're doing isn't working. You're, again, not running the football, not passing the ball well. They're committing pre-snap penalties. There was that 4th down where they had 12 guys in the huddle where they had to willingly take the penalty. They had to take the delay game. And then you saw the situation with Deshaun Watson walking over the sideline, Kevin Stefanski being very frustrated. The bottom line is, you spend months and months working on an offense in the offseason. It's almost impossible to change pretty much fundamentally who you are in the middle of the season, because you only have so much practice time. You only have so much time for meetings, and the vast majority of that time is spent working on your opponent. So unless they change something drastic, it's hard to imagine that this offense is just going to fix itself. So that's why that's why I say right now, this offense, unless they change a lot, it's not fixable.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll hear from Jim Schwartz when we return. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones. Diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Jim Schwartz talked about dealing with Saquon Barkley and another mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts against the Eagles.
Some similarities to last week and some things we should learn from last week, but, pressure on the quarterback generally can create mistakes, and then we got to be aggressive going after the ball. So, both of those things will probably play a part in this week. Saquon might be playing the best of any running back in the NFL right now. Extremely strong, great vision, jump cut.
And, Tim, that concerns Browns fans, or at least should, because they've had trouble against not great running backs the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think part of it, and part of the problem, obviously, is, they're getting blown off the ball up front. I mean, the Raiders game against what I said before was a historically poor running game at that point. The Raiders, they just blew the Browns off the ball consistently, and they just never were able to really get anything going. And with Washington, just the creativity what they have with the run game with Jane Daniels and what they were able to do with him and Brian Robinson Jr. I mean, that Washington is not one of the best offenses in football right now for nothing, and they showed just how dangerous they could be, especially with Jane Daniels run the way he did. And then when you look at the Eagles right now, they're one of the best. They were one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. And Saquon Barkley, I mean, what an addition he has been. Almost 109 yards rushing a game, 435 yards through 4 games, and he's done it with only 73 carries. So that's a yards per carry of about 6, and that's sensational in the NFL. So he looks healthy, and he's in a pretty good scheme for him with a good quarterback next to him, Jalen Hurts, plenty of skill players to take the attention off him. And so it's going to be very interesting how the Browns try to handle this, because they're going to need to play physical football, because you imagine that's what the Eagles are going to try to do.
All right, so you wrote 3 things to know about the Eagles. Take you through them, and then we can talk about them. Number 1, Eagles from the first 11 games of 2023 still missing. Number 2, even with 1 star out, Eagles still have plenty of skill. And number 3, Philadelphia just does not get to the quarterback very well. So take us through those.
Well, let's start with number 1. And what's interesting about this matchup is the Browns and Eagles are in kind of similar places this season. They're still trying to find their identity. In some ways, they're not playing to the sum of their parts as far as the talent is concerned. And with the Eagles, this goes all the way back to last season. On November 26th, they won a 37-34 game in overtime against the Bills. They went to 10-1. And this is the year coming off losing the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. They looked like they were going to go back. And then December came, and since then, dating back to the start of December, including the playoffs, the Eagles are just 3-8. That was a monumental collapse they had last season, blown out by 23 points in Tampa in the playoffs, and they're 2-2 to start the season. And there's a lot of questions directed at Nick Sirianni, criticism that he's not done his job, that the Eagles just don't look like anywhere near the same team that they were at the beginning of last season. It's kind of shocking to see this free fall that the Eagles have kind of had, because when you look at this roster, it's a good roster. There's a lot of talent on this roster, which I'll segue this into number 2, talking about the skill talent they have on the roster. The star I mentioned was out as A.J. Brown, hasn't played since week 1 because of a hamstring injury. But we talked about Saquon Barkley, and they also had Devontae Smith, who's a really talented receiver, doesn't have has a touchdown, 239 yards receiving. Dallas Goedert is one of the better tight ends, 301 yards this season, still doesn't have a touchdown. But again, plenty of skill talent around Jalen Hurts to really worry defenses. And number 3, I kind of alluded to this earlier, the Eagles, with where they are as far as their defense, this is not a defense that really gets to the quarterback. Remember just 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, they had 70 sacks as a team, 70. And this year, 4 games in, they have just 6. They have only 1 player on their team who has more than 1 sack, and that's a linebacker in Zach Bond. They also have the 7th fewest pressures in the league and tied for the 7th fewest tackles for loss as a team. So this is a team that does not get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. But like I said before, it would not stun me if they try to change that up because of who they're going against, because everybody knows the Browns are susceptible to blitzes. Deshaun Watson has been sacked a lot. They've been able to get teams have been able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, so it wouldn't stun me if the Eagles were able to turn this around. But to this point this season, they just had not really created a lot of pressure in the opponent's backfield.
All right, before I let you go, what do the Browns need to do to get a win? I mean, you need the offense. Do you bring back big personnel to try to run the football? They're just not physical like the Browns are not physical on the offensive side of the ball like they have been in the past.
I mean, bottom line, they're going to need their offense to play their best game of the season easily. They're going to need to start fast, and they're going to need to find a way to sustain that momentum going forward. And the big thing we talked about, you got to start winning first down. You can't keep putting yourself in 3rd and longs, because you're not going to have – no offense is going to function consistently well in 3rd and long. So you got Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey and company, they really got to revamp how they're thinking first down, because right now it's just not working. The run game is not creating enough holes, so maybe they do have to go to 6 linemen, double tight ends, and find creative ways to get things to happen on first down. There's a lot. Just basically be willing to run the football and trying to set an aggressive tone, like you said, because I think the Browns, I don't remember this is still the case this season. They've led the league for a while. I think it was after 4 weeks this season in quick passes out of the shotgun on first down, and that's not going to work. This is a team that, as much as you still have the personnel that you want to be a better throwing football team, this is still a team where you should be trying to run the football a little bit and just trying to win first down on offense to keep you on schedule, to avoid those third downs where the defense can't just pin its ears back and come get you and attack relentlessly. That's going to be important. The defense, you got, like I said, is also got to be about, can you hold up at the point of attack? Can you be tougher on their offensive line, and can you tackle cleanly? The Browns have missed a lot of tackles over the first 5 games of the season on defense. If you miss a tackle of Saquon Barkley, he's got a chance to burn you. Same thing with Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts. You got to be able to tackle cleanly. And the other key of this game is, for me, it's turnovers. The Eagles have turned it over 8 times in the first 4 games of the season. They've only taken it away twice. So there's certainly room for the Browns to win the turnover battle. I think at the bare minimum, that's what they got to do to win the game. You got to get those takeaways, and you got to be able to take advantage of them. That's dependent on the offense figuring out what's been going wrong over the first 5 games. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that because they've struggled against bad defenses throughout the course of the season. But if they want to turn things around, they got to simply find a way to manufacture some offense, and for Deshaun Watson to step up and prove that there's still a Houston Deshaun Watson still there.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out, Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.